So, Eric, how might these legal threats looming in the Southern District of New York impact President Trump and those around him? Let's bring in our legal panel right now, trial attorney Rachel Self and former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. Good to see both of you here in the set with us. Before we get to those specifics, I want to ask you, at this hour, as the anticipation builds, what questions are you hoping to have answered? Rachel?
I'm definitely interested to see whether or not there were no indictments because he didn't believe there was the evidence for the indictment, or if there were no indictments because he didn't believe he could indict a sitting president. That's really an interesting one for me, and I'm going to be fascinated by what the answer is.
No, similar analysis. I mean, in other words, people are going to be thirsting for either it didn't really happen, it's not really there really wasn't collusion over here, versus, oh, it's a legal technicality, there wasn't sufficient proof to convict, which is a semantic formulation I'm hearing already in a lot of the discussions. So that's the big thing. I mean, people have to understand there's a difference between whether somebody did a crime or not versus can it be proven or not, and people are going to mix those together, unfortunately, in the discussion. But as Rachel says, the key is we must see what the conclusion is as to whether or not it really was there or not. And
you're right to say that, Doug, that a lot of people will sort of mix the analysis, because this does not only include or involve potential criminal and already in some cases proven criminal cases. Right. But it also really, more to the point when it comes to the court of public opinion, it's very political.
No question.
And people want to know what's happening as they are looking at candidates running and trying to beat President Trump, and as President Trump is trying to work hard to save his job.
Well, and that's the whole point, though, and that's what makes Mr. Mueller such a consummate professional in this whole thing. It does not appear that politics was at all involved in his analysis of any of this stuff.
Right, not Mr. Mueller's analysis, but I mean everybody else who's going to spin this in their way. But let's talk about this, Doug. I mean, is this the end of the legal road for President Trump, for his advisors, like Donald Trump Jr., like Jared Kushner, or does the Southern District of New York present potential legal problems?
It's so interesting because the way you've teed it up about the difference between the legal and the political discussion, politically real quick, then I get to the legal political, this is over, it's a complete vindication. That's one side. The other side is there are so many other investigations, he's not out of the woods. The Southern District is merely going to pick up, I heard the other day, on where Mueller left off. That's ridiculous. Why is that ridiculous? No. Okay. Mueller was, because it's outside the ambit of the Mueller probe, he gave it to the Southern District. It's separate, okay? Now,
but Southern District's got federal and state charges.
But what I was going to say is the truth is down the middle, okay? The president is not yet out of the woods, but at the same time, the Mueller probe has completed. We need to look at the report. Politically, though, you're going to see these one-liners about the only reason he hasn't been indicted is because of the DOJ memo.
No.
The only reason he wasn't indicted is because the proof is insufficient. No, all I'm saying is that's what you're going to be hearing politically. Legally, yes, there may be some ongoing investigations. We will see. I can't pontificate about them until I see what happens.
Well, and I think the thing that's so important to remember is that because the Mueller probe was so limited in scope, he had a very specific directive, and he stuck to that directive. Right. But there are going to be a lot of loose threads that other agencies are going to be able to pull now as a result of the information that was gathered in that probe. And it was a very thorough investigation that he did, and these other agencies are going to have access to that information. And ultimately, within his gambit, within his directive, he was limited to what he did. But based on just what he found alone, with the 199 charges, the 7 plea deals, the 5 prison sentences, 1 conviction by jury, there was definitely beyond a reasonable doubt criminality happening.
So considering the debate that just unfolded right here before my very eyes,
2 lawyers,
should the Democrats subpoena Mr. Mueller to have him speak in his words, tell us what he came up with, why he came up with it, how he did it?
If they have his full report, I don't see the need to necessarily subpoena him. And if they do subpoena him, there's going to be a major legal fight and dust up, and I don't think he will ever testify.
And it's important also to remember that this talk about releasing the full report, true transparency, all of that stuff, it's actually not legal to release the full report. So they need to go through it. What Attorney General Barr is doing right now is going through it, redacting redacting counterintelligence information, redacting grand jury investigation information, because they're not allowed to turn that over. So if anybody gets confused about the fact or thinks that there's something wrong with this entire report not being turned over, there's a reason for that. It's against the law to do so.
But I asked you, do you think the Dems should subpoena Mr. Mueller?
They certainly, I think that it would be a very, very difficult thing for him to be able to testify openly with regard to this. I think it would be a fight legally. But I think, I mean, I'd love to know what he has to say.
I'm having coffee with him tomorrow.
Oh, let us know what he has to say.
I'm not. Calm down, everybody. Calm down. Doug Burns, Rachel Self. Thank you very much. All right, Eric.